Another cold one. Okay, so I just got out of seeing Ford v Ferrari, and now let me tell you, that one was smackin' do. But yeah, no, Ford v Ferrari was great. We are 3 for 3 now on positive reviews by Josh LeBlanc for The Real Reviews, where I review movies by the real. Yeah, this movie starred Christian Bale, Matt Damon, and John Bernthal, and this movie was great. It's a different movie, you know. All of a sudden, you know, we're in the late 2010s, and these big Hollywood blockbuster franchises are taking over, and they're filling up spots in the theater, and we don't get a lot of big budget movies like this anymore. You know, they're all, you know, a Marvel superhero movie or a space adventure, fantasy movie, all that type of stuff. So this is actually a really refreshing movie because it followed a very old-fashioned take of Hollywood that has not been seen in many years, and it was directed by James Mangold, who made most famously made the film Logan, which I don't know a single person who didn't love and cry during that movie. This movie was pretty awesome, I'm not gonna lie. Let's get in this car. There's my McDonald's, gotta keep it nutritious in here. And yeah, just on the topic of James Mangold, I think that he was a really good choice for this movie because he brings a really good sense of realism to this film. I don't know too much about the actual Ford v Ferrari racing event, the topic of event that it was way back then. What I do know is that it felt like a very grounded yet big and grand scope, grand film in scope. Thought that the movie was really exhilarating whenever it came to those nail-biting race scenes, and it was awesome. Time for the great venture home. Okay. Yeah, so to wrap the complete non-spoiler review up, I really enjoyed this movie. Ford v Ferrari was a realistic but still intense ride, I guess you could say. And I saw this movie in IMAX 2D. I don't think you need to see it on IMAX, but it's not something that demands it, but it is a very visually stunning movie. I think there's great camera work here. But yeah, so if you decide to go see this movie, which I highly suggest you do, go see it in the theater because I do think it is worthy of a big screen, and that'll do it. Please stick around for my more in-depth, non-spoiler review, and yeah, I'll see you in a few. Bye-bye. Hey guys, welcome back to my in-depth, non-spoiler review of Ford v Ferrari.
I will put you in the driver's seat at Le Mans. You just shut your mouth and let me do my thing.
So the story of this movie follows Matt Damon as Carroll Shelby and Christian Bale as Ken Miles. And the two are mechanics who are also extremely skilled professional racers. When Ferrari, the car company, spits in the face of giant industrial car manufacturing company Ford enlists the help of Ken Miles and Carroll Shelby to build a car that can basically kick Ferrari's butt in one of the biggest races in the world, Le Mans, which is a real-life 24-hour-long race that takes place in France. And as I just said, this is a film that is based on true events. So as I said earlier, one of the things that makes this movie so great is that it feels so real. It's a movie that has a very deep sense of realism to it. And this is done through many great things, but I guess the three main reasons are really make or break this movie. The first one is cinematography. This movie is beautiful. It is very well shot. The racing scenes in this film are so intense because of how well the camera is placed. Whenever there's a big, exciting, or even scary moment that happens, the camera is placed directly inside the car or right next to the driver. This is so great because oftentimes something really dangerous will happen, and since we're right there sitting next to the driver in the driver's seat, it's like we're experiencing it with the driver. And so a lot of the times these really dangerous and nail-biting moments are keeping the audience's hearts pumping because the film is shot so realistically. And then whenever the movie has to pan out to show the grandiose effect of each race, it's shot with beautiful, long, wide shots where we really get to feel the full effect and the stakes of what's going on here. And when we're not racing, dialogue shots are shot with great fluidity. They're carried on really well because the camera is put in very smart locations that never linger too long on certain actors, and it never feels dull. It always has a great sense of activity to it, as if something's always happening. And that's a really good thing to have whenever you have a film like this, where it's just a lot of the times it's just people talking, talking about stuff. And speaking of talking, the two main leads in this movie, Christian Bale as Ken Miles and Matt Damon as Carroll Shelby, are fantastic. Honestly, these are two of the greatest actors working in our age, and I really liked Christian Bale. So Christian Bale plays Ken Miles, as I've said already, and Ken Miles is he's this sarcastic English fellow, and he, by the way, when I opened the video, if you're confused as why I opened the video with a English accent, it's because I was doing an impression of Ken Miles. But yeah, so he's this sarcastic English fellow who gets what he wants when he wants, and he's honestly a scene stealer every time he's on screen. Most of the more funny moments in this movie come from Christian Bale's character because he just does not care. He could care less about what happens to him or other people because this guy has one agenda, and that's whatever he wants. And this is made for some very entertaining scenes, and his partner in crime, Matt Damon, is also very good. Matt Damon is very similar to Christian Bale in that he also, a lot of the time, gets what he wants, but it's different to how Christian Bale does it, because when Matt Damon is working his magic, he's a lot more clever about it. He's very sly. He has a plan to things most of the time, and things are never just rash and out of the blue with him. He always seems very calculated, and this makes him a very interesting foil to Christian Bale's character, who is, like I said, very rash, kind of a jerk in many senses. Like I said, every scene these two are in, they shine. It keeps the film moving, and it keeps me invested into the movie, and it adds to that realism I was talking about just a moment ago. And supporting characters like John Berthal are also a great addition. John plays this, I cannot remember the name of his character, but he plays a sales associate for Ford, and I know him from The Punisher and from The Walking Dead, and I love this guy, and he also does a very great job in this role. And the final thing that really brings this film to home, I guess, is the real-world comparisons it has within the film. As I said, this movie is based on real events, so that obviously there are going to have to be certain things tied into how life is today. And I thought the way they handled this stuff was extremely interesting, because this movie probably does the best job at exploring corporate agendas. And what I mean by that is that people often forget that the number one priority of companies is to make money. Businesses are in it for the profit. And so a lot of times there are these publicity stunts that are disguised as other actions by the company to attract more press and shareholders and bring in more money and attention for the company. And I thought that was demonstrated really well here in the behind closed doors scenes that we got in this movie. And it really kind of presents an eye-opener to you that, like, people aren't as black and white as they seem. There are always certain agendas that people have going on, and it's always important to remember that, and this film does a great job of showing that. And all of these things are just contributing to this sense of realism that I keep talking about, and because it's how this movie builds tension and makes you care about the story more, because it feels so real. It feels so close to home. It was real, so I think it is definitely a plus that it hits all these check marks, because it does a good service to the events that followed, assuming that for the most part this movie was true to what actually happened. I don't know too much about if it was true or not true, but I assume that it was, because every single scene felt like it was something that could have been said or could have happened 50, 60 years ago. So to conclude things off, Ford v Ferrari is a great, well-directed movie that does a really good job of bringing things into reality. Because of this, it's definitely a slower paced movie, but I'd say that that's not really an issue, because it does a good job of building up to those really intense racing scenes that I was talking about earlier, where it's just a constant heart pounder, and it's really exciting, and I enjoyed this movie. Definitely check it out. I recommend seeing it in a theater if possible, And that'll actually do it for today's review. So thank you guys for checking out this video, checking out my channel. I really appreciate all the support that I've been getting. It's really motivating. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks. Bye-bye.